Ben Weir, Ben the emo and cap. Welcome to the show, man.
That's me. Thanks for having me.
No, it was great, man. Kyle, our mutual friend, suggested that we pull up, and I saw your announcement about wanting to run for LPNH chair, and so figured, hey, it's a great time to pull up and ask you a few questions, man. So
Yeah.
for those who don't know who you are, why don't you give a quick, TLDR, a little bio?
So I've been a liberty activist for a long time. I've been involved with the Libertarian Party for a long time as well. Been on plenty of boards. I'm currently a region rep for the LNC, a region alternate for the LNC on the national level. And then, yeah, I'm going to be running for LPNH chair this next March. I'm the founder and chair of the nonprofit Punks for Liberty. I also founded the Emo Caucus, which is has been an awesome, fun passion project of mine. Like just bringing a little bit more fun to the liberty movement, and yeah, there's a lot of places to go from that. I mean, I've run for office before. I used to do a lot of touring back in the day. I've toured through. Um, I think my count was like 42 states or something like that.
Mm.
So I've been around, and I, I I've loved playing music my whole life. So it's a big part of who I am, and I try to incorporate that into my liberty activism. So
Very cool, very cool. I know you and I have talked offline, and some of my listeners may not know, but I'm pretty big in the music space as well. It's a huge passion of mine. Went to took my family when my kids were really little to Warp Tour, every year, and so a lot of people in the industry, go to a lot of shows, and so it's really cool that we sort of share that love of liberty and music. That's a cool combo.
yeah, man. And our friend Kyle Matovic, that guy is
Mm.
awesome. I love talking to him every chance I get. Hoping I can go down and visit him one of these days. My family lives out close to him, so um, yeah.
Right on, right on. You're based in New Hampshire. Where part of New Hampshire are you in?
I'm in Manchester.
Mm.
I'm pretty much like almost square in the middle of the state. It's the more populated area of the state. It's I moved here for the Free State Project, and plan to stay here for the foreseeable future for sure. I love New Hampshire. It's the freest state in the country, and we're making it better every day. So let's we're kind of just grinding, man. It's been a really good time over the last. I think it's been 2.5 years since I moved here. So,
Nice,
um,
nice.
yeah, it's been a good time.
That's awesome, and I had Eric Brakey on the podcast a while
Oh,
ago talking about the Free State Project, and he was certainly pitching it to me. My family moved from Seattle to Nashville about 2.5 years ago as well, and it's not as free as New Hampshire, but Tennessee is a hell of a lot more free than the state of Washington. So
yes,
so I feel like I've
yeah,
certainly escaped to some degree.
with taxes and all that stuff, man. Like for
Gun
sure.
freedoms, like Washington is really clamping down. The gun laws are becoming incredibly restrictive. So it was very nice to move to a constitutional carry state. Don't have to get any permits. I have three daughters, man. Like having
Yep.
none of the worry we had, with crime and drug abuse and all sorts of stuff in Seattle, and worry about if you defend yourself being prosecuted. It was a heavy weight.
Yeah, man. I mean, guns are a big part of my life, and they have been my whole life. I started shooting competition when I was probably like 5 years old, uh, and I unfortunately I lived in California for like 3 years of my life, and so I know what it's like to be in a state that's like constantly your gun rights are being trampled on, and you have to try to play these stupid games where they're like, if you really want this, you have to make all these modifications, and it's stupid, but New Hampshire, Tennessee, very free states when it comes to guns. We have constitutional carry here. So, I've already, I just had my son was born three weeks ago,
Yeah, I saw that pinned
and
tweet. Congratulations, man.
thank you. Yeah. And I've already bought him his first AR-15.
Hell
So,
yeah.
don't tell the libs, but
No, that's really cool, man. One thing I wanted to ask you, since you seem to be pretty active in political engagement, is how do you view participating in the LP? I'm also an anarchist, and I've sort of very long ago come to the conclusion that political action is not the way to
Mm,
human freedom.
yeah.
To me, it feels like the antithesis. And so, but I'm open. I'm open to the the ideas. I talked to several people this election cycle, particularly around the national LP, like Angela McArdle. I've been chatting with her offline about her strategy and supporting Trump. And I'm seeing a lot of people looking like they think political action, at least this election cycle, had some value. So I want to get your take on that, just generally. Like, how do you view, you know, political engagement, political action with respect to advancing the cause of human liberty?
I completely appreciate that take. I'm hardcore anarchist myself, and all political parties are is essentially the consolidation of political power and who has it and who keeps it, and that's the truth. So just by participating in the Libertarian Party, anarchists are, compromising on their views just on that sense. Now I think that, like, there's strategies at play, and I would rather the Libertarian Party be controlled by anarchists than anybody else, and I do think that there's a lot of value in what, they have to bring on a national scale, at least. For me, I don't care as much about national politics as I do the state politics in here in my own
Mm,
state, but, because I think that, like, real change happens at a local level, federal, whoever wins the Senate seat or the president. It doesn't affect your life as much as like people think it does. And if we can just keep decentralizing like we are here in New Hampshire down to the local government level, and I think that's the way to go. I mean, our actually the House Majority Leader here in New Hampshire is a libertarian. He's called himself a libertarian for a long time, and he's an anarchist, which is amazing. We have over 100 state reps here that call themselves anarchists, libertarians, or anarchists. And to me, that is way more important than having even just anarchists take over the Libertarian Party. Um, but I think that there's a role we can play. I think that anarchists being politically, like some of them are obviously apathetic to the political world entirely, and those are more like agorists.
mhm.
But I think that there's a role for us to play in this too. And I used to say the only smart anarchist is one that votes, and maybe I'm wrong on that. but maybe I'm completely wrong on that. I do follow. Um, a lot of like what Malice says, and I think that me and Michael Malice would probably agree on most things too. But you know, coalition building is huge, and coalition building happens across party lines. It's not a partisan thing. This is something that you have to go out and meet normal people and talk to them and figure out strategies on how to make their lives better. And sometimes that involves compromise as well. Um, I think that if the LP ever became just another, power hungry political organization, um, then the idea of libertarianism had been lost at that point. You know what I mean? And I don't see it. I don't see that happening right now. Um, but protecting the Libertarian Party, even just for the sake of branding, seems like it would be a waste of time. Just to keep the name Libertarian, the capital L Libertarian, because um, libertarianism is so much bigger than a political party. Like it can never be contained in a political party, and the party itself is just going to constantly be divided and fighting back and forth among things. Um, so a lot of that's just a waste of time. A lot of it is political theater too. Yeah, we just have a new level of political theater that we've unlocked essentially. Um, and like I said, I'm an anarchist, so I'm ready to fill any holes that are needing to be filled with good people, and that's why I tried to step up to be on the LNC as a region alternate. That's why I'm trying to be chair for LPNH. Ultimately, just by doing that, I'm compromising on my anarchism and probably losing some clout with my fellow anarchists out there. But I'm a Machiavellian too, so I think like if we can bring a little bit of that Machiavellian strategy to the Libertarian Party, that'd be that'd be awesome. So
That I've never heard anyone say that before, who self-identifies as a ANCAP. I was gonna say anarchist, but that's such a broad term, it's almost useless at this
yeah, it
point.
is. Yeah, right.
Because typically, people come to anarchism via moral philosophy, right? So we're talking about the non-aggression principle, and
Yes.
so Machiavellianism seems to be complete polar opposite to sound moral philosophy. So how do you square that in your head?
So like to me, like the world is dominated by power dynamics. And as libertarians and anarchists, where like I'm not a utopian, so I know that we're never gonna have Incapistan. That's just not a possibility. At least like not in the immediate future for
Mhm.
sure. Like it's just I try not to talk in hypotheticals with people when I'm talking about liberty and what I would like to see. I really am like partnering with minarchists essentially, to try to like just lower the size of government. And do I think minarchy is even possible in America? I don't really, but like, you know what? I'm not going to stand in anyone's way and I'm going to help get there just like anyone else. So I try not to give people too much of a hard time with the minarchy versus anarchy debate. I am a true anarchist. Like I believe there should be no government. I believe all government is illegitimate and I want to work towards that. Um, but libertarians, if you're going to participate, you have to, have a pragmatic approach. Obviously, you know what I mean. And um, I hate the word pragmatism because it gets dragged by so many bad people. But that doesn't mean you have to abandon your values. Really, like it just means that you have to understand how to navigate political systems and build alliances and communicate your ideas effectively with other people. So I think Machiavelli, like he believed that to challenge those powers that we have to be flexible and strategic, and sometimes willing to use imperfect means to come to the end. So um, I think that the LP is that's basically like what if anarchists are going to be in charge of the LP, then that's the way to do it, right? Like we have to like kind of like take a little bit of that strategy and be strategic with the I mean, I call it power, right? Like whatever power we have this year, we didn't like. Well, obviously, like we had a terrible candidate, but we're not swaying even on the national scale 4% of the vote either way. But understanding that there is the possibility if we had like a really good candidate running, using that like a 2 to 4% of a vote like, that terrifies the duopoly, that absolutely terrifies them, and here in New Hampshire, we have, even more opportunities to do that, on a local level and swaying some of these, like, really terrible candidates that, like, some of them shut down the Defend the Guard bill.
Mhm.
We had it passed through the state house. There was a lot of work that went into that. Um, but then at the Senate level, it got to a hearing, which is they have a hearing, which basically they decide on if they even want to vote on it or hear on it or not. And they didn't even like they said basically like, oh, we don't want to vote on this, and they shut it down after it passed the House already. So all of those senators that are winning by very small margins, like a couple hundred votes across the state, we can either use what leverage we have to primary them and get them the hell out of there, so that maybe the next person will give it more of a understanding, or we just run against them as capital L libertarians, work our way to get onto the ballot and make them lose. Let them understand like you are going to keep losing. You're going to lose what little power you think you have. And we're not scared to stand in your way. If you're going to put shitty candidates on the table that aren't for freedom, aren't for supporting the Constitution, then we are going to actively work with everybody else to get you the hell out of there. So, that's what I mean by Machiavellian strategy. Like I think um, it really comes down to just like being pragmatic about those power dynamics that exist in the political sphere, and it's a pretty deep conversation. But there's a book called it's Machiavellian's Defenders of Freedom, and it's one of my favorite books out there. Actually, the first time I heard of this book, I think was on a podcast years ago that Michael Malice was promoting this book. So like it's a great book. I definitely recommend people check that out. Um, and I think people will probably understand where I'm coming from when I say that a little bit more if they read it. And I do my best to convey these ideas in this way, but I understand people's skepticism towards saying you're a Machiavelli and that means you love violence to take over things. I'm not talking about violence. I'm a non-violent person. Um, like the a lot of this stuff is just, the power dynamics. It's so funny because like I quote power every time, right? But
Sounds kind of postmodern, dude.
it is kind of, but it's one of those things. It's like, I think all government is illegitimate. I so that's why I'm saying like power
Mm.
because ultimately like none of them represent me. So like I don't think that they really have that much power over my life. Um and a lot of people just see that to them. So yeah, that's kind of the synopsis there.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. One question I have for you is, like, do you believe that politics is downstream from culture? I know it's a claim that's made, and I kind of subscribe to that, but I wanted to get your take on that.
Um, I think it depends on a lot because that's one of the reasons I actually started the emo caucus was because I'm like I'm in this subculture of alternative music, right? And I formed a lot of my political opinions when I was a young kid, based on the punk bands that I was listening to, and like learning to not trust the government based on that. And then eventually, I started looking into what anarchism is and all this, and eventually just subscribed to the anarcho-capitalism sphere when I was like, in my early 20s. But I think that like we have to understand that um in these spheres like the music scene especially, the loudest voices are right now the most woke voices,
Mhm.
and that is what's dominating the music scene across the board. So we should do whatever we can to balance that out, and to promote like free speech and all that, and anti-censorship. um, and I've noticed even in terms of musicians that are coming out now after COVID, talking about how like they basically almost had their lives shattered during COVID
Mhm.
because their careers were put on hold. Some of them were fired, like Pete Parada from The Offspring, for not taking the shot. And it's is it downstream from politics? I think that they are very intertwined. I don't necessarily think that they have to be, but I think that politics is downstream from culture, and I think that the the culture like another thing I don't subscribe to is I don't subscribe to the idea of the Overton window, which a lot of like libertarians are gonna like get triggered by me saying that, but every seems like every conversation about culture you talk about the Overton window, but I don't really subscribe to that. I think that like people are just very easily manipulated one direction or the other based on what media they intake and all of this stuff. And uh, that's honestly, this is like a whole other conversation. I've been trying to have this conversation with some people publicly for a while, but um, the essentially, I think that the politics is just what it is. I mean, in terms of like the Overton window, it's not the left and the right side that's broadening one direction or the other. Like it's really the center line that moves left and right like consistently. Like that's what we saw this last election. Um, Trump won with a team of what is basically a bunch of moderate Democrats. If you looked at that ticket like 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago,
Yep.
you would have been like, these are a bunch of moderate Democrats and Republicans would have had nothing to do with it. Right. So it wasn't so much that the culture shifted to more this direction. The cult, like people, have always had like kind of their opinions, but that center line moved to the left. So now Donald Trump is right, but it's only because the center line moved so far to the left. Um, the craziest lefties are still the craziest lefties. The craziest right wingers are still the craziest right wingers. Um,
And then they meet in the middle. The
that's
horseshoe theory is undefeated.
yeah, yeah, you're right. I think, like, I would subscribe more to horseshoe theory than I do the Overton window, I think. So, it's a good that's a good point, but, I think that, overall, yes, politics is downstream of culture. I think that we have a lot of power, especially in media, and in music, to basically, like, we have like a free pulpit. Like, people go to concerts to listen to what the singers have to say, and they're not walking into a church to hear what a preacher says necessarily, but they are walking into concert venues and they want to hear what they have to say. So we need to use and leverage every bit of that power that we can get. Um, I do think that, like, music has a way to sway the culture and art has a way to sway the culture, and that's why I did the emo caucus. That's why I'm doing Punks for Liberty. I think that we need to boost up the names that um, are fighting against this cancel culture, because if we can even the playing field just a little bit more, I think that our culture is going to look a lot different. Like, especially if another, like, some kind of like lockdown thing happen, I think there's going to be a lot more artists that stand up against it. We're going to see a lot less music venues shutting down, um, and going out of business as well. Um, I think that that is kind of in our hands. So
Thanks for that. That was a very long answer. I'm trying to put a pin in
sorry,
a
dude.
in
Yeah,
no, no,
I'm long winded.
it's cool, it's cool. I'm just trying to put a pin in some things so I don't, skip over them. I think they're important. The reason I asked this question is, because I think you're right, like, the Overton window, has some validity to it, not, as much as the axis that I'm concerned with, and you're probably concerned with as well, which is, authoritarian versus libertarian, right?
Yes.
How much freedom you have, and what concerns me is I talk to people every day, and it doesn't seem like America gives two shits about liberty anymore. They don't care. Like it's one of those things that I feel like we're almost doing the Sisyphus thing, pushing the rock up the hill eternally, of pushing against culture. And so I just want to get your take on that because you know we can do some stuff on the political front, but I wonder how effective it's going to be when people generally, and my this is my take. I've said this a million times. I think Americans just generally hate responsibility, and
Mhm.
basically liberty and responsibility are two sides of the same coin. You don't get one without the other, which is why I think that America's largely rejected that concept over the last, I don't know, 20 years or so. It's really declined in my view.
Yeah, man. I do get a sense that, like, here, there's a lot of like libertarians that have like gone basically on the Trump train, and they're following that. But a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing from that administration is like, wow, um, some of the things, they might not be implementing on an authoritarian scale. Like, the only way to implement all of those things is on a very authoritarian scale. Like, the I don't know. I'm looking, like, specifically at people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.,
Hmm.
who I've been like an outspoken critic of. I can say good things about him. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna just shit on RFK needlessly, but I think that he's trying to, like, he's saying like he wants to just ban a bunch of things,
Yeah.
and that's not like, we all know like banning doesn't work, first of all, but also, like, are we considering the economic consequences to banning certain things that are in our foods as well? Like, there has to be some kind of transition if you really want to like move back into getting healthier food. It's not about banning it. Like, obviously that would be something that would be more of a cultural thing. You need to convince everyone that this is the best way to have your food, and then if enough people are buying that food and it outweighs the food that's not made properly, then that's going to be more affordable for everybody. It's going to be what people buy anyways, and it doesn't have to be banned. So I think that I don't know, man. I think it's there's a lot of authoritarianism on this scale, and people are um, unfortunately um, seeing it as pushing towards liberty. And I just think it's I always used to say, um, red flavored authoritarianism
Mm.
tastes exactly the same as blue flavored authoritarianism. It's still at the end of the day as authoritarianism. And I, all governments are legitimate to me, and I'll argue with minarchists about that all day too. But ultimately, I think that uh, especially with the current administration, I'm not as optimistic, let's say, as a lot of other libertarians that I've seen. I'll just say that I'm not optimistic. I think that we've all been lied to by politicians enough to give them that kind of leeway and trust. Like I think blind trust is a problem for libertarians. So
Yeah, man. This is where I've gotten sideways of some people. So I have some people unfollow me because I've said like I am skeptical that, for example, Trump is going to free Ross day one. Like that's I've talked to Angela about this, and I'm hopeful. Like I'm not trying to be a wet
man,
blanket
I
on the
hope so.
party.
Yeah, I
I mean,
really hope so.
it would
But
be great, and I would certainly give her credit and give the LP national credit for that if they negotiate that. That'd be awesome. But beyond that, even right, like you start talking about what this administration might be able to do, and I think all it took was looking at the picks that started to come down, and there were some good
yeah,
picks. I will say, Trump had some good appointments, but
they're
often,
like Jay Bhattacharya or whatever. How do you say
yeah,
his last name? That's amazing. It's a huge win. Um, it's not really a win yet, but he's obviously a million times better than the other guy
hmm
that was an AG in from California, you know. So um that guy was terrible. But yeah, the picks like going down the list and just I actually made a post about that recently too. Is like I'm just gonna like check in on what these picks look like. All of them have ties to APAC or Israel
yeah.
in some capacity. And
It was
I'm
nothing
like,
but neocon
"Ugh,
warhawks for a
it's
while.
all
It
the
was just
same.
it was crazy to watch that, and then I don't want to be too big of a dick. People like Dave Smith and Angela. Uh, like I get what they're trying to do, and I get that. You're comparing what would have come down the pike with a Kamala administration, and contrasting. And I think on net, it's probably a better thing. But at the end of the day, I think there's been a collective amnesia in the Libertarian Party about what Trump's first term actually looked like. And
Yeah.
I raise this issue all the time. And I say rightly that the first Trump administration was authoritarian leftist. And
Mm,
people act like I've got five heads, and they're like, "What are you even talking about?" And you look at something even as simple as in 1 year, Trump added more to the national debt than from George Washington all the way until Barack Obama took office.
that's
That is
crazy.
that is a staggering figure. And
Yeah.
then I see these people that should be well versed in economics. If you're in a libertarian party, you should understand how inflation works. That this is not Biden's fault.
Right.
Primarily, that all that money printing that happened under the Trump administration, it
Yep.
caused the consumer price and the producer price indexes to skyrocket because you've just diluted the value of all these dollars, and everyone's turning around blaming Biden. And like Biden's a bad dude. He got terrible, fiscal policy. He got terrible monetary policy.
And we
Uh,
haven't seen the Biden inflation yet. That's gonna happen over the next 4 years, you know what I mean? Like, it really will. Um, yeah, man, I wholeheartedly agree with you there.
and so for me, it feels like until we get the culture fixed, politics isn't going to solve a lot. I really do like the New
Mm,
Hampshire strategy, right? Like I really do. The concentration strategy is very smart. It actually can impact people's lives, in the local and the state government sphere, which probably has more impact on your life than a lot of other things do. Um, but at the end of the day, I don't think, at large scale, that anything's going to change materially until people start to understand the concept of liberty and view it and the associated responsibility as a good thing. And this is where I think I will break from a lot of people and say this incoming administration might do some real good. Because you look at Elon, and he is leaning, more and more towards anarchist. Honestly, like he's clearly a libertarian. I don't know exactly where he lands, but he is quoting the right people. He's saying the right things. He's clearly demonstrated. Like his famous quote is like, "Hey, the government is just a corporation in the limit with a monopoly on violence." Like that is a massive thing for someone to say who's got the president's ear. And the fact that they're
yeah.
bringing Ron Paul along, um, I think one of Ron's biggest accomplishments was not any particular legislation he passed, but the generation of people who he educated about the concepts of liberty.
Yeah,
Right. I think that's a
100%.
durable thing that could potentially move the needle. So I like to give the devil his due, and I think that this actually might help move the culture. What scares me though is that Trump sucks so bad he's going to fuck it up. Like
Yeah.
I think that a lot of these liberty-minded people that are in his orbit are going to get blamed when he inevitably, runs this thing into a ditch. I'm very, very scared that this is going to actually tarnish the national view of libertarians, not enhance it. If that makes sense.
And I gotta say, I love Vivek. Like, I saw him a couple years ago at Pork Fest. He came to talk to us up here, and I was like, man, this guy's like, he might call himself a Republican, but he's a libertarian. And for more I hear from him, I was like, dude, this guy's like he's a libertarian. Like, he talks about libertarian nationalism, which obviously I'm very against nationalism, and
Mhm.
I think like that he's still a flawed person. But uh, Vivek is a libertarian, and I really like Vivek. My jury's still out on Elon. I don't necessarily really trust him
Mm.
all the way. I have a lot of trust issues with him. Like, he does quote the right people. He talks to Ron Paul. He's trying to have Ron Paul as like an advisor, basically, with Doge, and he puts up videos of like Murray Rothbard all the time. And
Mhm.
I'm like, that's base, dude. That's amazing. And then like I see um, him talking about how he wants there to be a UBI,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I see him talking about like, we have all these, oh man, I made a post about this just earlier today. All of these freaking drones off the coast of New Jersey that nobody knows what's happening with them. Nobody knows what's going on. But Elon Musk has been talking about drone wars for
Mhm.
years. If you just type drone wars into his timeline on Twitter, you are going to be really sketched out by what you find. Like, I don't know who's in charge of the drones right now, but like um there's quite a few little options out there. I think that PSYOP is definitely on the table for this
For
one.
sure. For sure.
And I don't know, man. We'll have to see. I mean, it's is it aliens? I doubt it. It's probably not aliens. And I'm actually a believer in aliens. I
Are
think
you now?
aliens
All right.
probably exist. Yeah. But I don't think this is aliens. It could be a psyop. It could be corporate black ops. It could be just like in general government testing, that they're just not telling us what it is, and that's why they're not shooting them down. Um, and obviously, we can
Well,
put on the table foreign spying too, but I highly doubt
at
it's
that
foreign spying.
scale, that's tough to
Yeah,
have
there's no
that
way it's
many.
foreign spying.
Logistically, that's almost an impossibility. But one of the I saw this is the interesting thing about Twitter. You don't know what the fuck is real. But I saw a tweet that got posted and then pulled down that somebody captured, and it was somebody claiming to be a whistleblower saying that these were actually drones that were checking for radiation, and so they were certain they had a whole bunch of technical specifications around it using millimeter
Wow.
wave radio to sort of monitor certain facilities for, like, the government built these for that purpose. But I think it was the claim was this is potentially around a terrorist threat situation where something is going to happen in New Jersey or New York, and so they're flying around, looking for nuclear signatures or something. Like, who the hell knows? I mean, it could be just
That's
like you
wild.
said, a psyop meant to expand government power, or hey, we have to go to war with Iran now. They're behind this, or who the hell knows? Like,
Yeah.
you never really know what's going on.
I mean, they could, like, I was saying earlier too, is like, I think that it's wild because all the politicians in Jersey and even in New York, they're calling for like a state of emergency,
Hmm.
basically, to ban all drone flying, and till they can figure out what's going on. But dude, like, this might sound wild, but I have to tie this to the Second Amendment, because if warfare or surveillance is being, like, if the government is surveying the American people with drones, um, we should have like an equalizer. We need to be able to keep our rights to fly drones, and especially if these drones are weaponized in any capacity, like, drone your right to fly a drone. basically could be a Second Amendment like a violation. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's essentially like a way to protect yourself against, um, enemies, foreign and domestic, right? So, um, I I kind of like see it like that. Like, man, if they start banning drones and stuff, this is like that's really bad. This could be like a huge psyop for people to be like, okay, yeah, like ban the drones, like let's just across the board, like just like they did during COVID. They create this mass hysteria. They create fear in the eyes of the public because they don't know what's going to happen, and they trade their liberty for security. Like that's just what happens.
Alleged security.
Alleged security, exactly. Um, but yeah, like I don't know. I kind of I really hope that they don't like start throwing a bunch of bans out there again, man. Like just that would be
As
wild to
if
me.
they would ever. Oh shit. Well, that's cool, man. It's a fun topic. We'll see how that plays out over the coming weeks and days.
Yeah,
I want to talk more about the punk scene, though, man. Like,
yeah,
I also grew up, hardcore punk scene. Like, I'm almost 50 now, man. I saw everything, and I saw, Green Day coming up. I was a fan back, when 1039 and Kerplunk came out, and the Offspring. You mentioned Pete Parada earlier. They both,
mhm,
started in the same Berkeley venue, where they eventually got banned from, which is hilarious because
yeah,
they got too corporate. But seeing the degradation of punk into this like obedient, ass kissing DNC shill, type of situation, it really disturbs me deeply. It's like, other than Pete, are there other, people in the punk scene that are still like fuck you? Because I haven't seen that fuck you mentality. I mean, even Rage Against the Machine is like doing DNC events now. It's fucking wild.
yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, it's hard because like, I've actually noticed a lot more of the anti-authoritarian voices and the people who are like, anti-cancel culture and stuff. A lot of those voices are actually coming more out of the metal scene and out of metalcore, hardcore scene. You find a lot less of that woke shit in the hardcore scene. They're seemingly a lot more punk rock than the punk scene is. So, you have people like Ronnie Radke and Falling in Verse, who's
Yep.
very outspoken. Philabonte, Franz from
Mhm.
Attila. Obviously Eric July has backwards. Zuby, Zuby, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, just
Some
interviewed him
other
last week, man.
right.
Act A couple days ago,
Um,
actually.
and it's there's like I said, there's just a lot more over there. But a part of Punks for Liberty is I'm going to be creating like basically a network of musicians that is cancel proof is hopefully the
Mm,
idea here. And we want to create a coalition of musicians that, aren't afraid to speak their mind, aren't afraid to speak up, even if that means that they don't get the gig because the venue's too woke, even if that means that bands drop off their tours or their bills because they're, they're willing to speak their mind when everyone else isn't. Um, we need to put pressure in the art scene and um the punk scene by and large has been infiltrated by democrat shills and hard like, all these hardcore leftists and punk has historically been pretty left. Obviously it's mostly left, and especially like people the left anarchists. There's a lot of left anarchists out there and I don't think they're real anarchists. Obviously, I'm the only real anarchist. But um, you know, I think that yeah, like if we can start putting pressure in the opposite direction, even the playing field as much as we can, lift the voices up that are speaking out against it, give them the positive media that they deserve. Um, we have a lot of leeway here, or sway. I think, especially with social media now being more um, open to talking about certain things and stuff. Um, Punk scene is like do I think it's redeemable? No.
okay.
I don't think it's redeemable, but it's just like you said, like, politics downstream of culture. I do think that it is possible to have a big cultural shift in the music scene. And do I think it's gonna happen in punk? No, I don't think it's probably going to happen in punk, but I do think that it's coming, and I think that we should, try to promote that in every way possible. And I'm not saying even too like um, it's really easy to fall into that trap of right authoritarianism too, just to combat the left authoritarianism. We need to make it clear that like the root of punk rock and anarchy is that we want individual rights. We want individual freedom. And that is at the core of all of this. Is like if you don't have the freedom to speak your mind, if you don't have the freedom to um, control your body and what happens to it, your bodily autonomy by getting shots and all this stuff, then you don't have freedom. You're not a free person, and it's that's just where it is. We need to get back to the root of punk rock and just start promoting individualism.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know how to get there. Because when I talk to people and I try to caution them, it's like, look, the Democrats are the same as Republicans, and they're all run by the same corporations. Uh, when they draft a bill that becomes a law, I don't think people realize what happens. There's an entire just row of lobbying firms on K Street in Washington D.C. who actually write the legislation, and they insert their
Mhm.
little goodies for themselves, and then present it to lawmakers who don't even read it most of the time, and
Right.
then they vote on it, right? They give them the TLDR version, sneak in a bunch of stuff, and it ends up screwing everybody. But for some reason, there's like a firewall up in some of these people's minds. Like they're convinced that the Democratic Party is a champion for the little guy, and they're standing up against a corporation. And I'm just like, what the hell are you even talking about? If you look even at simple things like the campaign donors for Barack Obama, like he received the most money from Wall Street in the history of the world.
Mhm.
This guy is completely bought and sold by financial interests, and he governed like it. But when you try to talk to somebody that is in that left sphere, the normie Democrat sphere, it just doesn't get through, man. I don't know how to craft the narrative that's going to resonate with these people because it seems like it's a no win situation.
I mean, so here's the thing: is like for almost 2 years now, the caucus has been a thing, the emo caucus, and then obviously Punks for Liberty just started up like barely a month ago, and we're already doing this stuff, but um, we've had a lot of meetups. We've done. There's been meetups all across the country. Like people are getting groups together with the emo caucus, going out to shows, and then talking to people afterwards. We have like whatever like the little flyers to hand out and talk to people to get conversations going and stuff too. Um, but when you actually go out and talk to people and meet people where they are, like they're a lot less confrontational and a lot less shitty than they are on social media,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
When you're talking to them in person. And um, what I've noticed is that I'll go out to a show and I'll wear um, a vest that has, an anarchist on it, and it has like, the Guy Fawkes mask and all these things about liberty and all this stuff. Um, and people are like, oh man, like that's a cool vest. And I'm like, oh, let's talk about it. What's cool about it? And it's kind of like liberty evangelism, it's like gotta do a little bit better with our apologetics so that we can go out and just talk to people like normal people, because that's one thing that libertarians suck at doing,
Oh, for
is
sure.
talking to normal people. um, and it doesn't mean that they're gonna like go change from being like a hardcore progressive leftist to a right winger or anything like that. um, but I mean, even in terms of there's certainly going to be common ground there. Like if you're going to start talking about individualism and freedom, there's certainly going to be common ground you can find if they're a rational, normal human being. And we've even seen this, in the state house here in New Hampshire. There are like the chair of the progressive caucus for the Democrats here um, helped us get Defend the Guard passed here. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like he's very anti-war, and he's a very awesome, good person. Like in terms of like he's got some bad takes, but he even came to Porkfest last year and met up with libertarians, and I think that um, he understood like that this really comes down to one, obviously. Um, Individual freedoms and all of that, but um you know, the anti-war coalition. So this is kind of where bringing it back to what we talked about before is like as libertarians, like we should be kind of like trying to find more ways to uh, coalition with people that are outside of our normal wheelhouse. You know, like we need to
Mm,
stop talking to the same people, to the same echo chambers. Because if you go to like, I swear, like there's 100 liberty organizations in New Hampshire, and if they all have um, like a dinner or something like that, or a banquet, and you go to them, you're gonna see the same people at almost every single event.
yep.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not knocking them at all. I think that all that's very important still. Um, but like, you know, like it's a different environment than going out to a punk rock show. You know, like we can talk to probably the most diverse group of people that exists, you know, and hopefully eventually we can use this. And I would love to further my goals with Punks for Liberty and eventually do like a music festival, you know, for with people like this, based off of the spreadsheet of and the network of musicians that I'm putting together. Um, I used to be a talent buyer for a major venue and you know, a promoter. I used to book all of my tours myself, and
Mm.
got me a lot of experience. I did a lot of networking opportunities. I met some really awesome people doing that. So combining all that, like I think that it'd be cool to have something like a big Liberty art music festival type of thing, you
Oh,
know?
that'd be dope.
Yeah, let's do like a libertarian Vans Warp Tour or some shit like that.
Yeah, speaking of, man, did you see the the announcement about the Warp Tour coming back this year?
I did. I was like,
What do you
man, I hope
think?
that they keep doing it too. Like I when I heard that they had been like stopping it before, I made went out of my way to go to the final Warp Tour out in California, and I'm stoked that they're doing it again. It gives me hope that my son, who is now 3 weeks old, can possibly go to a Warp Tour and enjoy what I did at such a young age. Like I think the first Warp Tour I ever went to was in like 2003,
Mm.
and maybe it's 2005. I can't remember exactly. I'll have to look it up. But man, like that was like a game changer for me to go out there and um you know, the music was all very politically charged back then too,
Mhm.
and it was amazing, dude. Like Warp Tour was like it's just like a pastime that like if unless you experienced Warp Tour, you really don't know what it was about. It was a good community. Um, they'd have like, you know, stop through basically every state in the entire country with a huge like major list of bands that you could see back, which back then what were tickets like 35,
Oh, they were
40 bucks.
nothing. They were nothing.
It was ridiculous. Like 40 bucks for a concert ticket, man. You're going to like basically almost pay that to go see local bands these days. Like it's
Yep.
20 bucks a ticket now across the board almost. So um yeah, dude, like man, I hope that they keep it going. I would be so stoked about that.
Yeah, me too. I'm a little bit bummed. I looked at the lineup and it doesn't resemble Warp Tour. It's all. I mean, and God bless them, but it's like people like Jelly Roll, and it's like it's very
Yeah.
mainstream, you know, and it's basically when we were young fest essentially in a couple of locations, which bums me out a little bit. I guess we'll wait to see the full lineup, but
Yeah.
like you, Warp Tour has got a special place in my family because you know I took my girls back when you know I had them on my shoulders, like they were super little. I know the guys from Taking Back Sunday and going to that show, meeting them and going backstage and like that was a formative thing for my kids.
Mm.
Like all of them are still like you know like Eddie Reyes, like it has treated my girls like the best ever. Like every
And
time
that's
they came to
like,
town, man, we got the full treatment and they gave them free merch and like
yep.
it was such a cool thing and now my kids all love music and they all love concerts and it's just it
Nice.
really gets down deep.
Yeah, man, and I think that this is also a place that like people would go to explore new bands, and they would like. I didn't walk away from Warped Tour without a ton of compilation CDs, finding new favorite bands all the time. Um, that doesn't really exist anymore at all, and you know, I think that would be really good. And I'm not sure. Do you know who Finn McKenty is? He does punk rock MBA.
No, I don't.
So I had him on my podcast about a year ago, and he basically told me that uh, concerts and festivals now, like if you look at the concert lineups and all of that, you would have probably seen almost the exact same lineup 20 years ago. And it's because nostalgia feeds
Mhm.
everything. And that's why Warped Tour is coming back again, is because they know nostalgia sells.
For sure.
And all these major metal festivals do the same thing. You're going to see Slipknot and Deftones and Mudvayne, and like this lineup literally could have happened 20 years ago, and you could have seen it for a tenth of the price back then too,
Right,
probably.
right.
But nostalgia sells, man, and it's not going to stop. Like I feast on nostalgia all the time. Emo caucus is very nostalgic. Like I love emo. I kind of uh, I graduated high school in 2008, so this was kind of like going through high school was like peak emo days.
Mhm.
Like all of the best emo bands were popping off right around then. I think I met Silverstein back in the
Oh,
day
wow.
there. It was obviously Taking Back Sunday was around, and like it was Hawthorne Heights, all of them. So
That was a good era.
yeah, it was great. And I don't know, like I would love to see some kind of like Liberty emo punk rock revival happen
Oh, hell
someday.
yeah. Yeah, I hope so, and, but just to pivot back to what you said, I gotta shout out my boy, Brian Swindle and Have Mercy. I
Yes.
found them, by accident. It's just like you called out, like, you go to Warp Tour and you come away with new artists and new music, and, just random chance, it was happened to take my daughter to the bathroom because she was, like 12 or something, and I'm hanging out and I'm listening, I'm like, "Damn, those guys are really good. Who are those folks?" Put 'em in my phone, like I did that with, like all day long, and we come away with new music and new artists. And now, through some twist of fate, like he works for me now. Like Brian Swindle, he works for me. He
Yeah.
wrote the intro music for the podcast, and I work with him every day.
I don't know if I ever met them, but you said like we played Warp Tour the same year.
Yeah,
That's pretty crazy.
2015. They were
That's so
on
crazy.
Warped.
There's a like I like you don't really like meet a lot of the other bands on when you're doing
He
that.
said it was miserable. He said the most miserable time of his life. It's just so grueling. And I understand that, but also, as a fan, you look at that, you think that Warp Tour would be like the best thing ever, but I'm sure the reality doesn't quite match the
Right.
shiny veneer that you're watching from the stage.
Man, I think that like it's all like it really depends because for me and my band, like we um didn't profit as a band. Like none of us took money from anything. All went back into the band. Anytime that we took off to tour or do anything like that was just money lost basically
Mm,
for us. And um the thing with touring and playing shows all the time, you get offered a lot of unhealthy things like I never fell into like drugs or anything like that, but alcohol's free at every venue
mhm.
for the bands. And if you for me it actually got like really easy to like um I would just go out and socially I would be drinking all the time, getting drunk, and it was so unhealthy that it like makes you so depressed, damn near turns you into an alcoholic. And for me, it took like a kind of a big awakening to, step away from. I had to actually walk away from alcohol entirely for 3 years,
Good for you.
just to try to, I drink like casually now. Like I went out to have a nice dinner with my wife yesterday, and we had a drink together. But it's not like what it used to be. Like drinking, when I say drinking every day, almost to the point of being drunk, that's alcoholism. And, like
Yeah.
the music scene feeds that to you, and it's not healthy. You're not sleeping, your body's a wreck because you're throwing it all up there on the stage every single day. Um, and you're driving 8 hours to the next show to do the same thing again the next day. You're eating nothing but junk food and fast food at every truck stop across the country. It's it's just not healthy, and I know why people resent touring as bands and why they stop doing it and why they get unhealthy and why they get depressed. It's it's all tied together. It's a very unhealthy lifestyle. Until you change it and start seeing things through a different lens, it's going to be miserable for a lot of people. And hopefully that wasn't something that he had faced, yeah, your buddy. But I
It
do
is
think,
actually, Brian, went through severe alcoholism, and he is
mm,
completely sober now. I've been sober for years.
that's
I
great.
actually saw him at his last show up in Seattle, with the band, before he went to get some help, and it was tough to watch. I'd heard the rumors that he had issues and stuff, and
Mm.
now seeing him completely sober is just, like, amazing because he's the best dude. I absolutely love that guy, but he had your story is exactly what he's telling me as well. It is just nonstop alcohol flowing and very easy to get a monkey on your back that you have difficulty getting rid of. And obviously the touring stuff as well doesn't help. Being on the road, being depressed, being away from family and friends, the whole thing is just a volatile mixture, I think.
Yeah, man, it really is. And um, I don't know. Like, I think that it's definitely like, there's a very clear difference in bands that take their health and make it a priority on tour and stuff. Especially like, like I'll even see like people like Phil Labonte like posting that he's at the gym almost every single
Hmm.
day, even when he's on tour. You know what I mean? And you know what's crazy? Is like, for like basically 15 bucks a month, you can get free showers for your entire tour. You just have to get like a Planet Fitness membership or something
Yep.
like
Yep.
that. You know what I mean? So a lot of bands will do that, and they'll go and they'll shower. Better than paying $5 every time you go to a truck stop, and they'll work out and do things that help them eat healthier and move. Um, and I think that like that it's it's a big change. So um, yeah, I mean, it wasn't the funnest time of my life. I call it my social peak, but really, people who remember me from then, man, they remember a sloshed up mess. I guarantee it.
Mm.
And that's just not me anymore. Like, I still write music. I make a lot of music, and I'm planning to put out probably an album within the next year if I can get
Nice.
the time to do it. But you know, it's 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 not like it was. I'm doing this for fun. I have always done this, because I love music and passionate about it. I've never done it, and music's never been a chore for me. Um, and I think mind wise, my mindset is a lot healthier than it used to be back when I was doing all that touring and stuff too. So
Well, congrats on that, man. There's a lot of people that get completely taken out by that lifestyle, and so really glad to see you in a better place. Really glad to see you healthy, happy. You got a great family. You got a new kid. That's music to my ears, man. That's
thanks.
awesome. Kudos. But hey, we're getting right up towards the end, man. So I wanted to give you a chance to shout out anything you want to shout out. Tell people where to find you online, and go for it.
I think the most important thing that I'm working on right now, if people would like to follow me, my handle is the emo ancap on Twitter. But Punks for Liberty is what I'm plugging away as much as I can right now. Go to punksforliberty.org. Sign up to be a volunteer. Maybe you can help us table at local music festivals. We're going to be doing a lot of outreach in communities across the country, community cleanups, helping in all kinds of capacities, like people who are struggling with depression and drug addiction and all this stuff, getting them resources that they need. Um, and in addition to that, you can just sign up for our mailing list. Just put in your email. And The biggest thing is that it is very expensive to table at music festivals. It costs thousands of dollars each, and it costs money to do all this stuff. So if you have the available funds and you want to help out, donate at punksforliberty.org. That would go a long way. We're trying to table 5 major music festivals next year. It's an ambitious goal, but that is our goal nonetheless. And we already have at least 2 on the books as of right now. So
Come to
um,
Nashville.
I would love to come to Nashville, dude. You have no idea. I would love to go to
I will
Nashville.
show you a good time if you come out to Nashville, man.
Okay. All right. You got a deal. You got a deal.
Sweet.
Um, but that's it. Yeah. Check out punksforliberty.org. Follow us on social media on all the pages. We got a Facebook and we have Instagram, and a Twitter is where we do most of the work. So, um, yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for stopping by, dude. It was a absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure this isn't gonna be the last time. I'm gonna have you back.
For sure, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, later.